It's time for Into the Pits, where we're going to pit two games versus each other to see which one rises to the top, eliminating its opposition. In this episode, we're going to talk about Roll Player versus Sagrada. You people out there is what caused this. You caused these two games to be pitted against each other for literally absolutely no reason at all. I mean, let's just start about this. Let's just start before we drive. The way we do this is we have 5 categories. Each one's worth a certain amount of points. We talk about one category, and at the end we vote. Games will get points, and then we do the next category, etc. We talk about these in a vacuum. So when we talk about one category, we do not bleed, or try not to, unless it's necessary, bleed over into another category. So we're very looking at things granularly, whatever the word is. And we try to be as non-biased as possible. And I think that when you vacuum in on each thing, it's where you can do that. Mm-hmm. Right. If you're talking theme, it doesn't matter what is happening. You talk about theme. If you talk about components, talk about components. You know what I'm saying? But for some reason, people out there want to compare Roll Player versus Sagrada endlessly. And I was like, well, I don't know. We'll try it out. We tried it out. And I'm like, what? I mean, did y'all have the same feeling?
I can see why they'd be compared.
Yeah. A lot of people say...
dice holes.
Dice drafting and placement.
Right.
Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I didn't get it.
It's like the whole Splendor phenomenon. It's got different colors and you take them.
You build an engine.
You build an engine,
like Splendor.
As weird as this sounds, I find it more appropriate to compare this game to Rolling America.
Oh, no.
I'll tell you why. Sagrada.
Oh.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
You can't have the same number next to each other. You basically are drafting colored dice. You have to put them in the same slots. The only difference is you're counting up and down and up and down. Excuse me. On adjacent slots. You're solving the puzzle of Rolling America in those two games, whereas Roll Player, you're not really solving a puzzle. You're spending tons of gold to mitigate all kinds of stuff to do what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So
now that you said that, I think that's a great shout. Sagrada could have been a roll and write.
It could have been, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a really good call.
It could have came with far less dice and look way less prettier.
Yeah. I was going to say that probably pretty much takes away from the game to do it like that.
It would destroy the game. As a matter of fact,
number 2.
Let's play Rolling America with only dice. It would be come with 50 million dice. It would come with 50 times the number of players. That'd be a lot of dice. But yeah, I compare it more like that. So, all right, here's what we're going to do. The first topic or first category is theme. Theme is comprised of stuff like concept, the integration of the theme, the story, the fluff, etc. Now, obviously, I get that Sagrada doesn't have a massive amount of theme,
it's
but
a little bit more abstract.
It is a little bit more abstract, but we'll obviously take that into consideration. So, Matt, what do you think? What do you think about theme here?
Theme wise, actually, Sagrada, I feel like I am making a stained glass.
Really?
I mean, yeah. I mean, because you're not in the manner of the way you. Not in the manner you go about making it. I don't feel like I'm using a forge and heating up glass and doing all that. If that's how they make stained glass windows. But the end result kind of looks like one. But on the other hand, I feel more like Roll Player. You're creating a character. It just kind of feels more like it.
The weird thing about Roll Player is if people have not experienced old school D&D games, they're not going to really understand the theme, other than it's a fantasy game where you're putting a bunch of dice to match these numbers. And so the theme is strong, but it might be almost too strong in the nostalgia category and not so much in the making sense category.
Yes.
So, I see why Sagrada would be more of a theme for everyone, because it's just it's a neutral theme. A lot of people are tired of fantasy, but not a lot of people played games about making stained glass.
Generic fantasy, I guess, too.
It's generic fantasy, right? But I mean,
it's straight D&D.
Yeah, it's D&D for sure, because that's what it's trying to be. Is that whole concept of rolling up your character's stats in D&D, which is frankly gone. I mean, you can do it still, But in the newer versions, it recommends having so many points that you assign to the attribute. Once you get to a certain amount, it costs 2 points or whatever. But that way, everybody has the same amount of points. Whereas before, you would roll 4 dice, take the 3 highest, do that 6 times. You have 6 stats, and you place them in the 6 stats.
Yeah, so thematically, it matches old style D&D pretty well. Other than the fact that higher is always better, but in role player, it's not necessarily.
That's fair. So, any other points you want to make on the? What about like I guess Matt talked about the integration. I guess we kind of talked about the integration.
Mm-hmm.
Did I
agree?
Did you?
Did I?
We talked about making stained glass, but you weren't forging stuff.
Sorry. I agree with what he said. I think Sagrada has more theme integration than people give it credit for, because you can't make your grid from the middle. You have to start from the outside.
Yeah.
That's
theme
sense.
right there.
And you have these drafting tools that have names of actual drafting tools.
Do they really?
I actually didn't notice.
Oh, I didn't notice that either.
But that's a very
interesting,
little thing, because they don't do what
what it mimics.
you would actually do.
Right.
Yeah, I think the only thing is, and the reason I'm kind of leaning role player, and the only reason I'm thinking this is because role player, its theme is literally not replaceable. You can't say you would put like a any other theme on it, because it is specific to a thing that it happened. You know, it's specific to character creation in D&D. Whereas Sagrada, you can literally replace that with anything. You lose the element of you're building a grid of houses in a district, and you gotta whatever. I mean, the theme is so it's neat how it's implemented, but it can be stripped and replaced.
Yeah, I even thought you could do 8-bit characters or something like that.
That'd be kind of neat.
Wait, which one are we talking about?
On the 8-bit characters.
Okay, well, couldn't you do that with role player? Couldn't you strip out the theme and say, okay, now we're going to be making a housing district, and in this category of a housing district, you want 14 points of whatever the thing is, right?
I can see that.
I think you could do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could do it, but
not with everything else going on.
I mean,
maybe if you just took where you place your dice, yes, but there's 3 other things that you got.
Yeah, you'd have to check
all
that.
Yeah. Instead of a sword, you have a shovel.
Right, or you have
right,
the post office or whatever. Who knows?
Right.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, you would have to really stretch that to make it make sense. Whereas Sagrada's theme is lightly on there. Yeah, it's cool that it fits into it, but it's so much easier to just lift it and put something else.
Yeah, no, I'll give you that.
But the counter argument to that is, like I said, it's so niche for role player on what it's drawing from that it's targeting a group of nostalgia.
Smaller
a group of people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
the theme is the worst part of role playing.
The
character creation.
Oh. They made a game out of it. We actually made characters, and Matt went through a role-playing session with them.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, why not? I mean, you could.
It was kind of neat.
That's a good way to do it.
So, I don't know. I guess, is it time to vote? Is everybody ready? Do you have your idea?
Question.
Yep.
What do we do on
ties? I thought about that. So, the way we're going to do it, because I designed this to where it wouldn't have ties, but we have George joining us. So, what we're going to do is...
Glad to be here.
Yeah. The theme, presentation, components, and rules are all worth 2 points each category. The gameplay is worth 5. Now, I think I don't know what I'm going to do about that. We'll think of something on the fly. I don't know. But if there's a tie on any of the other categories, it's split.
Split 1 and 1.
What each game gets 1 point.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So on gameplay, that's a good point, because I just realized it probably should just be either 4 points or 6 points.
Yeah, just bump it.
Bump it up. All right. We'll make it.
I would say 4.
Say 4.
Double.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll go down to 4. That's fine. We'll see. 2, 4, 6. That's fine. We'll do it like that. So 4, and we'll divide it if it ties on the last one. So, all right. What we're going to do is we're going to vote. You're going to hold your handouts 1, 2, 3, and you're either going to 1 for role player, 2 for Sagrada. Good times? All right. Just like rock, paper, scissors. 1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, go.
Yeah, no one ever goes 1, 2, 3. No, it's rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Okay.
Know what I'm saying?
1, 2, 3, go.
This is great on audio. So ready. 1, 2, 3, go.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Unanimous.
Well, unanimous. Role player gets the thing. Role player. All right, so the second thing is presentation. This is 2 points. This is the graphic arts, the artwork of the game, the organization, the layout, whatever you want to consider. It's not, the presentation is not just artwork, it is everything looks wise. So, Eric, start us off.
I'm kind of leaning to Sagrada on this one, just because it's more colorful. The dice bag is nice. The inserts or the inlay is nice, and you can actually put I forgot what it's called, but your sheet, it actually goes into the insert.
Right, like your little puzzle that you have to fill out.
Right. So yeah, I kind of am leaning towards Sagrada myself.
Matt, what do you say stuff?
Say stuff. Okay, so Sagrada, it's gorgeous. It looks great. Are we just sticking with one of these categories, or do we?
We're just doing presentation, basically.
I know, but we're just doing graphic art, or do we talk about all of it?
Anything.
Right. This is the presentation of the game. So it could be the artwork, the graphic arts, which is different. The artwork is literally like drawings of people.
Right. Which Sagrada has none.
True, but it does.
It does have artwork.
Yeah, it's artwork. All the stained glass.
It has less artwork.
Well, it does have less. But I would say that Role Player has more generic artwork, where it's not real. I mean, it does have characters on your player board, but it's.
You know what? I'm going to say this real quick,
and all the cards.
Role Player is blander.
Yes.
Also,
right.
Go ahead. Tim.
What I was going to say is Sagrada can't really be upgraded anymore. It's pretty dope as it is. Right. Whereas Role Player, if you got the artwork from the WoW TCG cards to replace everything, it would be a next level. I would go, whoa! Like the graphic arts and art in Role Player are kind of, I mean, it's got some good artwork, but it's very. I think that it's specifically done.
It's very second edition,
older style, yes,
or something, yeah,
yes,
which kind of makes sense if they are doing it for nostalgia players.
Right, it makes sense, right.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the dice are very lackluster. I like the heft in the weight of them in Role Player, but the Sagrada dice are just beautiful. I mean, they're because they're like, you know, acrylic, see-through, you know, colors,
translucent.
That could have been a decision by Role Player to sort of go with the older style dice as well, but it does sort of mar the appearance.
I don't know if it would actually. I don't think it would look good with translucent dice, even though it has some in the expansion, which we're not talking about. But you know, they could at least like rounded the corners, although that would actually make them tip over more. Maybe that's why they tip over so much in Sagrada. They look pretty, but they're rounded. I never thought about that.
I didn't really have.
We'll come
problems.
back to components.
Okay.
This next category.
Oh, that's true.
This is an interesting category, I think.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add, Matt?
No.
George?
I'll add for presentation that Role Player has very dark backgrounds. The player, what do you call it?
Player board and
player
stuff.
Boards, yeah. Just everything has this sort of just dark,
muted and dark.
Muted.
Yeah, it is very directed towards the audience that it's going for, which is a good thing. I mean, that's what they should do. But I mean,
but there could have been more done with that, I feel.
It would have been cooler if the player board had a little bit more design. Even though Sagrada's looks super busy, you don't do anything with the player boards other than the little grid, and it makes sense because it's a giant, busy stained glass window. So,
and it's just one piece, and it's very attractive before you start, and when you're done, it's more attractive. So it feels more open and clean to me.
That's fair. And I guess you can't really. Role Player comes with way more components in general. But I don't know if you would weigh that equally towards each other. Like you almost have to just take the main player board, what you're putting on it,
the dice, the
dice
look of everything, like the artwork,
the look of it. You know, if you walked by a table and didn't know anything about the games, which one would? Well, that's a bad idea because it's like, oh, that's so cool. Look at it's fantasy.
I just felt like the Sagrada could have done a little bit better job on the cards. the cards are super boring.
Like the iconography and stuff?
Yeah, just everything. The way, just the look of the card. It's like
I see that.
Those drafting cards.
They went all out on the board and everything, and kind of was like, the cards don't really have to look all that great because the board will carry everything.
That's fair.
That's exactly right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. Has everybody kind of made up their mind, you think?
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. We're going to vote on this. 1, 2, 3, shoot.
Whoa.
Outvoted, man.
No, wait a minute.
Roll
One was
player?
what? Sorry.
Sagrada?
No?
Yeah, Sagrada.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty unanimous. I think Sagrada.
I was like, because when you all threw two, I was like, I don't see them picking role player on this.
No. Yeah, 1's role player, 2 Sagrada.
Right, that was my bad. Yeah, sorry.
That's pretty much unanimous for Sagrada on the presentation.
Here, let me write it up here. Sagrada 2, role player 1.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, actually, if you want to keep tally, Matt, role player has 2 points. Well, actually, both of them do.
They're down here, so it's easier.
The next top category is components. In this case, we're talking about the quality of the components, the uniqueness of the components, the functionality of the components and what they do, stuff like that. It's not limited to just what I just mentioned. It could be limited. It could also talk about like the thickness of the boards, or if we were talking about the wingspan, we could talk about the resume style paper that the rulebook had, stuff like that. So it could be whatever, but we're talking about components in general, not how they relate to what you use them for. But no, I guess functionality, you can kind of,
Well, I kind of almost lumped it into presentation, going back on, they both have I guess they're called inlay boards,
right,
where you can inlay your dice in, but Sagrada goes a step further and lets you put in that board that changes what you need to do on your turn, whereas Roll Player has another card that says, hey, you need to put a purple dice at 3rd location for strength, and you need to use a yellow dice on the 1st location for charisma. So I would give it again a bump to Sagrada for that, and component wise, the dice are better with Sagrada. Comes with
I don't know if they're
a better bag, I think.
Better. They're prettier for what you're using them for, but they would not fit well in Roll Player.
I agree with that. Yes.
Even if you expand the size. But what I'm saying is, if you took the dice,
you don't want Sagrada blingy dice and put it into Roll Player. It would look off.
Like pretty Roll Player.
Yeah.
But I think if they just rounded the corners in Roll Player, it would be nice. But functionality, as we talked about it makes sense.
Well, yeah,
I almost kind of would like Sagrada to be pointier dice because, or we're just, I don't know, are we fat fingered? Do we just knock stuff over a lot? Have you had a lot of problems with that when you played it?
I don't have fat fingers.
Well, like people at the
sorry,
table.
Tim.
I haven't had.
Sierra must because she complained about it.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess Sierra's got fat fingers.
Sorry, Sierra.
I didn't say.
I'm just saying she brought that up.
She did bring it up quite a bit, but I mean, it could be like the table, or it could be the dice tray.
Her fat fingers.
It must be. I have not had a problem.
Sorry,
with that,
Sierra. I kid.
I don't know. You have run into anybody else complain about it?
I have run into other people who complain about it.
Yeah. And I wonder if it's just because the dice are small. Maybe if they were bigger, it wouldn't have a problem.
Right. It's less surface area too.
It's like they're pretty, but they're small.
Tippage.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, what about the? I mean, obviously the card stock and everything. I think in Roll Player is pretty adequate. I mean, the card stock in Sagrada, I guess, is probably fine, but you never touch them anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
I feel like I might have to abstain from this vote because I've only played Roll Player.
Oh, that's fair.
Tabletopia.
Oh,
that's fair. That's fair.
They're average.
That's a hard one to compare components.
It is. So I think I'll abstain from this one, but I do have one question that could swing it a bit. Is in Roll Player, are the coins or are they punched out cardboard?
They're punched out cardboard.
Okay. Was it a Kickstarter?
No, I don't know. I don't remember.
Maybe there's Roll Player coins out there. I don't know.
I think there are coins for the game. Yes.
I don't know. I've never
Let you
seen
get upgrade.
That would be.
That would definitely be
That'd be sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, a nice thing. But if it's just punched out cardboard coins, then I think Sagrada gets it for having the
The beads.
The beads.
Yeah.
I mean, the beads are cool, but they're very basic.
They are basic beads.
They're not even like that cool glass beads that are kind of like
they're like dollar store beads.
Yes.
Aquarium beads.
Yeah, aquarium beads. Yeah.
Like you play viticulture and you look at their glass beads and I'm like, wow, these are fantastic.
I would say they're better than maybe a wooden cube or something.
Oh, but they are. Yes, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And they go with the theme a little bit better. They are glass and
okay,
so,
they're just beads, but still beads are nicer than cardboard. So I still think they beat the coins.
Yeah,
that's fair. They both come with bags.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all the dice out of and stuff. And
I don't remember the bag on Roll Player. Roll Player, I think, just comes with a generic bag.
It's a big black bag. It's not like a satin bag or velvet bag or whatever.
I think Sagrada is it silk screened or something, which might give it a little bit of an edge on the bag at least.
That's fair. Matt, you got anything else?
No, I'm good.
Well, are we missing anything from Roll Player that component wise? We got the cards, the market phase, the
dice bag,
the dice
dice player
bag.
board, and the cards. Yeah.
No, I think that was it.
All right. Well, I guess we can vote then. You gonna stay out of this one then?
I'm staying out.
All right. So just these three. Matt, ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3. Vote. Yep. We got Sagrada in the unanimous decision. I'm assuming George would have said the same thing, probably, even if he played Roll Player.
More than likely.
All right, so the next thing is rules. Now, this one's kind of interesting because it does encompass a couple of things, and this is also why I was talking about earlier, why I read the rule book to Sagrada instead of just being taught the game, because we're going to talk about the rules in the rule book, which I may have to interject. I don't know if you all have read the rules for either game. Maybe George read Sagrada.
No.
I've read both just to be ready for this. Yep.
That's fair. But we're also going to talk about card text, how it translates, the iconography that shows up, and how it, lends itself. Some games, the iconography is really bad and it doesn't have the rules on it. So, like, for instance, in this game or these games, what I do like about Sagrada is that even though the tools have iconography, which is okay, when you read the rule that's printed on the actual card, which is fantastic. Please, everyone else learn from this.
Right.
I mean, you can make a language independent game by having just iconography, but you can also type out text on it as well. I guess if you're doing that, then maybe you got to type it in like 6 languages. I don't know.
No, just go with one and use clear iconography and
right, bam.
Good. Yeah.
So it's got that going for it. I mean, it has the text on there. Once you read it, it kind of makes sense. It would have been neater instead of just having this, because the iconography on those cards, there's a lot.
Sorry, let me be clear. I don't think we should exclude people by, just having one language. But what you could do is you can print it in the main language that you're using yourself.
Right.
And then have the translation online so that you don't have to make all those publication, expenses and yet still have it available.
Now, what if they maybe it looks cleaner if they just leave text off of it completely?
Probably so.
But I don't know. It's so much cooler. If
I agree with you. I do like it on the card.
I like it having both. It's a fantastic thing. I guess there's not a whole lot of iconography in Roll Player.
There is just
on your player board to let you know what to do for each.
Yeah, like put these colors in these spots.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. The iconography for the special abilities is pretty clear.
Yeah. Traits will say,
arrows.
Arrow go up, down, left, right, whatever.
I think the one thing about Sagrada that would have made the tool cards better, and maybe it does, but it's not as very clear, if it had like an image of a tool that you can quickly associate with. Because when I look down, the first thing I see is that stupid solo player color in the top left. And it's cool when there's 3 different colors, because you can quickly be like, all right, I like the blue one because it does this. I like the gold one because it does this, or whatever color. But if it's like 2 blues and a purple, it's really hard to just quickly glance over. I mean, there's only 3, so it's not like there's a billion.
Have to remember a lot, right?
Right, but it would have been neater if there was like one small icon that you can look at.
Or even going back to what Matt said, just having separate actual art. Why not?
That's true.
I would say that we did run across some questions on some of the tools, such as, you can move a blue dice anywhere, not caring about color restrictions. But in the iconography, it would move that blue dice, but it would put it next to a yellow. So I would have thought that maybe they could have made that more apparent, if it was, because you can do two different things. Like
it's the interpretation of it can be skewed slightly.
Can you not place it right next to another blue, or can you put it in a spot that's supposed to be reserved for red? Mm-hmm. So those are two different. How we played it is we could do either one of those, but it wasn't clear on the card.
Yeah.
I think we even kind of had the same thing with the card.
We did.
We talked it out and figured it out, but it wasn't completely clear.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to go through them as a group. Whereas I feel like in Roll Player, I don't think I've ever questioned a card.
And I will say, even though you all like the text on the cards, it's kind of hard to read. I never had one problem reading Roll Player stuff, even upside down. So
that's true because the contrast is white on black, whereas on Sagrada, it's kind of like. It's like thin black letters on a like blueprint kind of tan blueprinty thing.
Yeah.
But the cards are small, but I mean it could depend on how far away from them you are. I don't know. That's why I said it should have one clear icon. Like for instance, if it was a Viking themed, it could literally have a giant rune, a big R, or like a weird plus. You know what I'm saying? And like you look and you can easily say, oh, I like that one because it does this. And you don't have to like glance at, because if you put like in 3 it's okay, but if you put like all the cards next to each other and quickly glance, you still don't, like, the iconography is almost busy enough to where it's hard to differentiate them without paying attention to them.
Right. Yeah.
So
one thing I'll say about the rulebook themselves, Sagrada's rulebook has a lot of illustrations for such a small rulebook.
Yeah, Roll Player is straight text. Which is, like, the rules are pretty straightforward. I don't think they're really hard to understand, but examples and pictures and stuff like that do help out.
Just to break that up a bit, and
yeah, because even the examples are greatly defined in Roll Player, but they don't have an image to accompany it with like showing you the components and stuff like that.
They do at the start. They show you each kind
component.
Of card, and
but later on,
but not during the rules.
Yeah, so later on, if you're reading about something, it's like, oh, and if you do this with this or whatever, like a lot of other games do it, where it's just if they reference something they're not talking about right then, they'll have a picture, and you're like, oh, I see what they're talking about. I don't have to go look at the component list to say, oh, that board or whatever. Roll Player isn't as bad with that, but it's interesting. It is kind of like just a couple of walls of text. Well, almost like a PDF document. The layout's okay. The layout in the Sagrada rulebook is okay too. I don't think it was.
It's nice.
It's nice, but
I've never played a game of Sagrada where one of those tool cards didn't have us going to BGG to figure out what it was.
Yeah. There's another one too, or something. I forgot what it is right now, but it's like
they always come up
every pair of 2s and 3s, or.
Yeah, it's like the same ones always come up, and we always have to go to BGG to figure it out.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fair. So, yeah, I don't know. I think Roll Player does define... Like, you almost can just teach somebody the rules, and they won't even ask questions about the cards. Like, for instance, when we played it, with Matt, because I noticed Eric's group was doing this, when they flipped out the market cards, they read them off. In our game, we didn't even read off a single one of those. We just flipped them out. Even when we played it, just flip them out because there's like literally no questions about them.
Right. Yep.
So I think that's a pretty good thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anybody got anything else they want to mention before we vote?
No.
Matt?
Nope.
All right. Let's vote. 3, 2, 1. Bam. Yep. Roll Player unanimously gets the rules part.
Even though big wall of text is a bad plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. All right, so now what's the score, Matt?
4-4.
4-4. TV game show works out well. This is going to be interesting because if it ties, I don't know what to do. Anyway, so
they died.
Well, yeah. We won't even have tiebreakers, which was one of my pet peeves on the top 5 things about rulebooks you hate. So this is gameplay. The idea behind this was it was originally the most weighted thing because obviously all these other things are great, but if you know how to play the game, the rules don't matter. If the game is great to you, like for instance chess, the components and stuff don't matter. Although you could get 24 karat gold chess pieces and look like a baller, but you can play with whatever. So the idea is the gameplay would be the heaviest weighted thing. In the gameplay, we're talking about mechanics, the complexity of the game, which could be good or bad depending on if it's complex or not complex, the length of it, the replayability, the strategy, all that stuff. Pretty much everything that's actually going on mechanically. So George, you start us off on this one.
Are we also talking about just desire to play?
No, not really desire to play, because I think
which gameplay, like what you enjoy the most would go into effect. No, because you got to think about this. Take away bias. Oh,
we're strictly talking about things that work and how, if you look at one machine and another machine, this one runs a lot smoother than this one that's clunking, but this one's kind of making me gold.
Think Ford Chevy.
So the idea is you have to you want to look at the game, what it's doing, how it operates, how well oiled it seems in compared to the other game. Not so much as, I really like this game because I got a great feeling from it. That's not really that's just your takeaway, but
yeah, okay. That's kind of how I judge games though. Like that's what I like about a game is what I like about a game. Like that's why I like it. You know what I mean?
Well, I know, but what I'm saying is going back to the other topic where we're talking about Dreamscape, and I liked Reef better because how I feel like you can combo off each other better, right? But you're saying that you like Dreamscape better because of the planning and everything. But both games, if you took just the mechanism itself and compared them, it's not about the enjoyment of it. It's about how well does it actually work. Like, for instance, you were saying that Reef seemed random.
It does.
Whereas Dreamscape is more planned out.
In comparison, yeah.
In comparison. So, and that's like a non-biased thing. Like, I agree with that. I think that there is some kind of math behind the Reef part of it. But, take away my personal feelings because I didn't want to think that much, I guess, with being very general with it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, try to.
Okay.
We're human.
Actually,
we do what we can do.
Before we even talk about it, here's a thought as well. If we vote and then talk about it afterwards on why we voted a certain way, or we want to just talk about it beforehand?
We'll just see what happens.
All right.
Matt, you start us off.
Okay. So what? Mechanisms here?
Yeah, well, let's start with the main thing that's happening, because the whole point of this topic is to pit two games that are similar, right? Obviously, let's talk about the similarities and maybe like the differences on what people are trying to. I think people are trying to go a long distance of comparing these games and what you're doing, because in one game, Roll Player, you're placing things from left to right, and you're really just heavily mitigating your whole entire strategy.
Yeah,
that game has a lot more mitigation than Sagrada does. Sagrada almost has zero mitigation other than
the tool cards
the 3 times you'll do it throughout the game.
Right. Well, the mitigation also comes into the fact where you have blank spaces where you can throw off. So that's kind of your mitigation factor in there as well.
It's not even a throw off though.
It can mess you up in the long run too.
Because you still have a die there that can't be next to a die of the same number or color.
Right. But for that moment, I can't put it here, but I always have.
You have to place it adjacent to another die.
Yes.
Of course, you can go
diagonal as well. So usually, maybe not, your very start, but mid game you have quite a few different options. Is what I was trying to get at. I would say that Sagrada gives me more of that puzzly, trying to figure out, what I need, where I need to, put things aspect to it.
The spatial element.
Yeah.
Whereas, like you said...
Kind of going off that real quick, not to interrupt.
Sure.
this is the whole point that I don't get what people are doing. Like Sagrada's a puzzle, and Roll Player is like
as a puzzle mitigation is a different, I guess, way to
it's a
kind of do the same thing. Is putting your dice into specific.
It's not as much of a puzzle
areas and mitigate it. Or well,
there's a lot of puzzle going on, but
you mitigate it more in Roll Player.
Obviously, Sagrada is way more puzzly.
Right.
Yes, but interesting for me. Roll Player is way more thinky for me.
Oh yeah,
it is.
That's fair. I will agree with that.
Well, there's more mechanics to it.
There's
more components.
There's more math.
I think it takes more planning in Roll Player than Sagrada. A lot more.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Sagrada, you're just kind of going with the flow. You, both of them do have drafting. I guess we haven't said that. So, but you're just kind of at the mercy of both of them you're at the mercy, but you can do a little bit more with what you get in Roll Player, I think.
And they have different mechanics that kind of go along with the drafting as well.
Yeah, it's like I kind of like both. Although, so like in Roll Player, the drafting is you draft a die. The die that you draft also gives you your initiative for buying in the market phase, which could also be a big thing because you could basically need to do that to destroy a card that somebody's going to get a ton of points out of, or need to do that to buy a card before somebody else destroys it. Whereas in...
That's so mean.
Well, it is mean. But in Sagrada...
There's also like zero player interaction in Sagrada.
Sagrada has zero player interaction?
No.
But also no meanness, really.
To an extent. But... after end game wise, you kind of know what your opponents need. Oh, he only could put a blue die there.
You're talking on like the last 2 or 3 dies.
I could drop.
You're
the
not
blue
worried
dice.
about it the whole game.
Exactly.
And that's only the last couple rounds.
Yeah, and the point I was trying to make is, I like the way the drafting works in both, but I do have a small quip with the drafting in Sagrada because I do not enjoy drafting first. It's cool to get that first die, but getting that last die is not fun.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't enough to make me hate the game or anything. I think it's a cool
You better
aspect,
hope you got some blank spaces that doesn't have
you have to
that
plan
color
for that.
or that number.
Right. That's where it comes down to the luck factor of what's left over. And
there's still a choice. There's 2 die you get.
There's 2 dice, and I guess that's when you probably want to use your mitigation things, which you literally do 3 times in the game. But my point is, I have a little bit of meh on some of the drafting with Sagrada, but I'm completely fine with all the drafting in Roll Player.
And you might not even be getting anything you want, but you always feel like I can work with this.
Right, because in Roll Player, it's like I can take the last card and go last. But that's fine because I didn't need any of the cards out there for the market stuff, or maybe I didn't have enough money to do anything about it anyway. So I would be burning a card to get more money, or whatever. So my point is, like, I don't get a feeling of, oh man, I really need to go first, but I don't want to take this crappy die. And so I'm not trying to be harsh towards Sagrada. I'm just saying there is one thing I didn't like about the drafting in Sagrada. There's nothing I didn't like about the drafting.
And it also did make sense that there's gold coins on the middle ones because you kind of really want a high die, or you want to go low and mitigate that die, but be first to buy from the market. Right.
So that's interesting. What about replayability? Let's talk about that specifically.
I would myself give replayability to Roll Player. Because I think each game is going to feel a little bit more different. Whereas I feel after playing multiple games of Sagrada, you might feel a little samey because there's, like I said, not a lot of different tools or you always get the same personal objective and all that. So it might feel a little bit more samey. Whereas in Roll Player, you do have a deck of cards that you're buying from that kind of might change your strategies and what you're able to get and what you're doing in a specific game.
You also have the alignment and backstory cards that'll change it every time.
Yeah.
Whereas Sagrada is pretty much the exact same thing.
Yeah, it gives you
it's just whatever board you pick.
Yeah.
A power.
Which is, it's not a bad replay. Like, Sagrada is a fun experience to experience over and over, but
they both have good replayability.
Yes.
I just think Roll Player kind of edges it out with like I said, the alignment, the backstory, your class that changes like what armor you might be trying to go after throughout the game. So
yeah, I guess the equivalent would be Roll Player just having, if it only had the attribute scores and that's all you tried to go for.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have like this look. Well, I don't know, maybe not, because the backstory thing that where you want to put those kind of mimics the actual printed, where you can place things on the other one. That one's restricting you, whereas Roll Player is rewarding you. But it's kind of the same thing.
Kind of.
Yeah. But then the alignment's something different. I think the alignment's neat because you get different abilities to try to like jump back and forth to activate them and try to keep your alignment around the same spot till the end of the game. But
I'd agree on the variability or replayability. Sorry. Well, really, variability of Roll Player. It has a lot more going for it. But I think another sort of replayability would be with Sagrada. I would rather play Sagrada several times in a row than I would Roll Player. Like that one just mentally tires me out more.
Yeah, I could see that actually. Another thing with the I just looked at it and I forgot. So Sagrada, you're playing against everybody. Obviously, Roll Player, you're doing this also, but I don't feel the need to in Sagrada maybe check what my last score was to see if I did better. And for some reason with Roll Player, I'm just like, if I didn't win, it's like, well, did I at least do better than last time? Maybe that's just a personal thing. I don't think I would do that in Sagrada.
Yeah.
the ironic thing about that night is I got the exact same score in both games.
Oh, weird.
I got 37 points. I thought that was kind of interesting. Maybe they are the same game. You can do equally as well.
I never record my scores, so I don't know.
Oh, that's fair. I'm a spreadsheet nerd,
Yeah,
so I really enjoyed it. Yeah. It's like, wow, the lowest winning score was 12. It's like, that's nuts.
Yeah. The average score for this game is 25.
Yeah, I did terrible.
Right.
I do record if I played or not, just so I can see how many games I've played and what my H index for games is.
Yeah.
But that's it. Yeah,
that's fair. Well, anything else you want to add in? Mechanics, complexity, the length of the game. I actually thought Roll Player is, oddly enough, I thought it was going to be a lot longer, but it wasn't.
No, it's a touch longer, but not a lot.
No, because our group got done before the Sagrada group, which had me and Tim and one new player. And what Sagrada had, you and Melissa, so two new players on that and one. But then when we switched, you had 2 new players in Sagrada, 2 new players in Roll Player, and that the Roll Player group didn't finish that much longer behind us.
Right. Which is kind of interesting because Sagrada is a decent length. I actually really like the length of time it is. I actually really like the length of time Roll Player is. But for Roll Player to have so much more stuff going on and only add that much time, that's actually a pretty cool thing.
It is nice.
Well, actually, I will say that just thought of this right now. There is one element that I would say a lot of people don't like about Roll Player is that initial dice.
Oh, that's a good point.
You draft 7 dice, you roll them out, and then you're putting, you're plugging those dice in. But I might have rolled all high numbers, which is beneficial for me. You might have rolled all low numbers, but there's no mitigation in that. Where some other games are like, oh, if you have a total of 25 or less, you might get to re-roll, or you might get extra gold or something to kind of mitigate the fact that you rolled really bad with these 7 dice, and you're going to have to, during the gameplay, mitigate those dice that you did bad in, where I don't have to mitigate that. I could just mitigate the dice that I draft from then on.
That's a huge point. I agree with that so much. It's
so
a
I
big
would say
deal.
that's one knock on Roll Player on just how it starts.
Like Sagrada and the color personal goal, that
it could do the same thing.
You can change it with variants, right? And you can fix it with variants. I think Roll Player, you could do the same. You could just fix it with a variant and say you have this many points divided amongst your dice.
Or
you could house roll it, but there are cards that help you if that happens to you.
Some of those cards are actually pretty awesome too, because like some of your stats you only get 1 point for getting, but then you could get that other card. It's like botch these stats and get 2 points.
Yeah, you could.
Oh yeah,
you could.
Yeah, you do.
Somebody else could burn that card.
That.
Yeah, or it could show up or it could not.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of.
I think that in the example you're talking about, the game, other than you, everyone else was very equal, even though some of the players had very bad starts.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea behind that is there's enough mitigation in the game that I think it's not as bad as what you're saying. Although, if you roll a ton of high numbers, you probably do have a slight edge.
Right.
Although I will say that I think that kind of like what Marco Polo, where if you roll your dice and you're under a specific number, you get some kind of benefit.
Mm-hmm.
That actually would not be a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Although in the many times I played Roll Player, I mean,
more
being
than
granular,
more often,
I agree.
It's gonna be, you're gonna get some high numbers, you're gonna get some low numbers.
Yeah.
It's gonna work out,
right?
But
if you really let's just say you actually really botched it in what 3 players, you got like 7 dice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you rolled all 1s, 2s, and 3s,
which happened to Sean when we played, I had all like 4, 5s, and 6s. And he had like 1, 2s, and 3s.
I rolled all
3 was his
but
highest one.
And I get what you're saying. Like, you already have your 6s and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
He
I
doesn't
have to mitigate much less.
Absolutely. Yes. And your mitigation is for perfection, whereas
the
other person is just trying to get somewhere.
Of course, it could matter on the attribute numbers that you actually need, because some of them do require you to have 14 or 15.
Well, 14 plus.
No, some of them are.
Some are within a range.
Some
are an actual straight number.
Yeah, some are like, I think those are only 18 maybe.
Which actually still goes to my points, because I already started high. Now I can draft these low dice and don't have to worry about mitigating
low
those.
Dice might not come out though. That's
they're always out.
I mean, they usually are, but
I kind of see Eric's point though, because now he can, if he rolled a 5 and 6s on everything, and now he only needs a 1, 2, or a 3. He can now draft a 1, 2, or 3.
Draft low and still buy
first.
And I don't have to worry about mitigating that edge, 1 or 2 or whatever. Yeah.
No, we are rolling dice.
It is dice. True. Every game, both these games have dice, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I think that part is usually not going to be a problem, but every once in a while, it almost would be like if you roll less than what like take each player. Well, I mean, not average, but like think of a number, and then if you roll under that, get to re-roll, but you have to re-roll all of it.
Yes.
So, and then you have to accept the new roll, or like a mulligan.
Yeah.
Like in D&D or Magic the Gathering.
That would probably be the easiest way to do it. Figure out what a decent number would be, and then if you just can't add your dice up to get to that, then
it has to be a different number based on the player count, because you get a different amount of dice.
Oh well, you can figure that out, but
realistically, I mean, the game would be twice as long, but just don't even start with dice.
Oh, that would be...
The game would be twice as long.
It'd be pretty long.
True.
Yeah.
Or maybe start by rolling all those dice into the center and everyone drafts from those.
Oh, that'd be kind of...
That would add some length as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It'd definitely be fair.
So,
that's true.
Just to add a couple of things against Roll Player, so it doesn't sound like I'm not being harsh against the game, there are 2 things that I think are really bad about Roll Player, at least in the base game. One, when you first get your dice to start your board, at the end of the game you get points for your class dice, and some people might draw more class dice than other people,
or gold dice
or gold dice, which gives them a lead on gold. Now obviously, because in your initial placement you're probably not going to mess yourself up on your attribute colors, like where you need those dice. So I think getting class dice and gold dice are probably a slightly better advantage than not.
Right.
And the second thing is, it makes absolutely no sense, and literally I would house rule this off if it makes no sense that the armor cards actually have a bonus towards like 2 classes.
Right.
Like leather armor is what, black and I don't know,
green
or whatever, whereas like the chain is like white in another color, and the other type of armor is the last 2 colors.
Right.
But
so,
why? Yeah.
But there's no reason, because if you're playing 3-player game and then 2 players are fighting over one type of armor and the other person's like, have fun with that.
Right. Well, which I would also say that it's like a +1 victory point. So it's
+1, but
It's +1 for the set too.
Psychologically,
So.
people feel like
I need that whole set now.
right because you
can buy any set.
You can buy any set you want, but psychologically, players are going to gravitate towards those for no reason.
Right. The one that is their color.
Yes, because they put that +1 bonus on there.
Mm-hmm.
So easily you could say just ignore that, but
right.
It's there, so we have to add it into the equation. So
They're trying to be thematic.
They are.
Clerics have to wear chainmail.
I get it. It's just that mechanically, it's probably it was a bad choice, but it wasn't a detrimental. Like it doesn't destroy the game or anything. But it was like, why Decatur? So, but anyway, so anything else? Or are we gonna vote? Let's vote it up on gameplay. 1, 2, 3, vote.
Oh.
3 role player, 1 Sagrada.
I am outvoted.
Yeah. I'll say edge it out, not by a lot for me. So I was kind of wavering a little bit, but I did have to give it my vote to role player just because of the additional mechanics.
That's not always a good thing. That's why I mentioned the fact that the length of the game is not much longer for a lot more stuff happening.
Right.
But I do recognize that.
I do like the puzzly aspect of Sagrada quite a bit more. But overall gameplay, I think role player has a little bit more to offer.
That's fair. It's really weird to say this, but I like the role player thing because of how much mitigation it is. Even though when we were talking about Dreamscape and you have all these special abilities and mitigation, it was almost too much for me. So I don't know why. But speaking of which, I posted this on Instagram, and people actually voted. So let's see what it's at right now.
Oh,
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
We don't have a massive following on Instagram, but it's at 50%, 50%.
Wow.
That's hilarious. And I also posted in some other places, and they were talking about I posted this in the Dice Tower chat that we have, and some people were talking, and not to read off their actual things, but I will kind of say what people said. We have a Sagrada, but still don't get the comparison. That's Robert Geislinger. He would be okay with this. He would be like, he's definitely in the crowd of us where he's like, what? Like that doesn't make any sense. It's a very loose comparison or whatever.
Right.
So this person we picked Sagrada, role player, but only with the expansion.
Kind of
role player with the expansion.
Role player does get a lot better with the expansion.
Sagrada. I don't know on that one. Sagrada, role player.
Did it tie also?
So far.
Sagrada. No, scratch that one because they just got role player. Haven't played it. Role player with the expansion. And we can't count that one because it's a tie. Wife likes one. I like the other. So.
Okay, role player edges it.
By one. Yeah.
By one.
But the only thing I will say that is there a lot of people that said that say role player with the expansion.
That's
right.
True.
And kind of did base game to base game.
Yeah, we did base game. You know what? It's interesting because after we played, since we were doing this, we played the base game a few times rather than adding the expansion.
Right.
And I don't know. Like, I actually I don't know if I'm liking the non-expansion. Like, I like the expansion content, but I don't think it's a must include like some people are saying.
I do like it a lot better.
I like the monsters.
Right.
Yes, I do like the monsters better. I think they should be there. That
I didn't really care about the boss battle.
The boss battles crap
keep that
to
out.
Me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should I haven't played with the expansion. Let me start with that.
Yeah.
But I think that if you're going to do that, you might as well have little modules that you can go through. Just play D&D. Like once you have your character,
I think you could do that with this.
it'd be fun.
Yeah.
Just little short modules. It'd be great.
Yeah, we haven't played it that many times with the expansion, but yeah, it would be cool to module it out. because the biggest thing is you have like a little deck of like monsters you can fight. So instead of discarding a card from the market, you can actually fight the monster.
Well, make it co-op that way. So you're going through the module. You're a party.
That would be a fantastic expansion.
You have to help each other.
Have a co-op expansion. That
right.
If Thunderworks is listening, that's the next thing right there. A co-op expansion would be because
with story elements,
right? Because I mean, they did that with Orleans, and that was kind of a weird thing, but apparently it's awesome, right?
It is.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but yeah. I think a co-op expansion for Roll Player is necessary. That would be actually pretty excellent. Just replace the market deck with like a town that's being destroyed, and you have to like instead of drafting, you actually kill guys to get points, and you have to I don't know. They can figure that out.
Yeah.
Oh, in the expansion the way it is now, you don't kill guys?
You do.
No, you do, but it's competitive. So
right. Okay.
I'm just saying, like, instead of drafting, because cooperatively you can just speak about. Oh, you take that one, I'll take the second one.
Gotcha. Okay.
You got to make some reason to.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Roll Player is victorious in this, although I'm going to say it's not massively.
Yes. I said for me,
personally, it's massive.
Personally,
it's massive, but I don't think this victory is massive.
Mm-hmm.
That's the distinction. For me, it is a massive victory because I like it far more than Sagrada, but it breaking it down, I think that they both hold their own. I don't think they should have been pitted against each other. We specifically did it for the appeal of the audience.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of people say I've heard. Like Sagrada is Roll Player light, kind of.
That's fair.
I'm not sure if I
I still don't agree.
Distinction, but
wasn't it published first?
I don't know. I think Roll Player came out.
Yeah, Roll Player came out first.
Did it?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, well, while we're talking about that, let's just go around the table. Quick little thing about what you think about the winner and personal feelings or whatever. Just a real fast thing.
I find it mathy and annoying.
That's fair. So you're more for Sagrada then?
Yes.
Matt?
George is salty. That's fine. No, I did try to be objective with everything. I did like Roll Player better as a whole, but I do like doing this because it kind of lets you see how, when you really pick the games apart, how maybe you didn't appreciate things, maybe you should have.
That's fair. Eric?
Well, I kind of said it already, but it was for me. It was really close. It wasn't a blowout or anything, so I was kind of had a hard time determining where my last vote would be, and it could have went either way for me.
That's fair. Well, cool. That is Roll Player versus Sagrada. Oh, by the way, Sagrada came out 2017. Roll Player is 2016.
I am corrected.